So we are about 10 hours out from last night's full moon in Leo, and I'm here to do your TAROTSTROLOGY Ascension report on those energies. My name is Solara. I am not a traditional astrologer. I utilize a system of my own making called TAROTSTROLOGY, where I utilize the chart to look at the astrology of the time, but also to bring forth messages through channeling and through numerology. Okay. And through the tarot. I missed the tarot. The tarot, numerology, channeling, and astrology. Okay, so if you are a stickler for astrological terms, for certain astrological schools of thought and philosophies, I might not be the one for you, and that's okay. You can keep it moving, but please don't try to put me in a box that I don't belong in. You can find someone else who speaks your lingo. You can find someone else who can give you these energies from the lens of, whatever school of thought you vibe with. Okay, so let's get into this. There's a lot that's clearing through this full moon, but oftentimes before things clear, they kind of become, I don't want to say they become murky, but everything that has been being suppressed starts to come out. And that's what full moons often are about in any case. It's about the full clearance of the emotional body, or at least it's supposed to be. And because the moon was hijacked through the false matrix, our ability to properly process emotionally, utilizing the proper lunar functions, was fucked up, right? And through this full moon in Leo, a lot of that stuff, a lot of that tech, that suppression tech, is falling to the wayside. So there's a lot of ways that they suppressed us in the false matrix. And to really get a clear understanding and comprehension of this, you kind of have to go back to the Genesis point. I've been writing about this on the community board. I created a decree about this around the new moon in Capricorn. So about 2-3 weeks ago, I released this decree. I put the information on the community board through this full moon in Leo, again, for people who would want to access that. It was about the renunciation of the Atlantean control grids. Okay, so I'm bringing it up because this full moon in Leo, it's a huge clearing of a lot of the suppression tech that was born through the original Atlantean contracts, where we were guided to let go of our own self-mastery to be mastered through external forms of authority and governance. Okay, so this is where it all began. And there were a whole bunch of contracts and subcontracts. There were a whole bunch of contracts and subcontracts that were put into place at the time, and over time, these things were built upon in order to create a very complex, energetic system that existed on the Earth's plane for the purpose of suppressing some and elevating others. And I'm making this very simple. It's a lot more complex than I'm talking about. But many of you, my just saying that, you will instantly resonate with what I'm saying because you have lived this out. You've lived it out not only in this lifetime. This lifetime, you might have a clearer comprehension of what actually has been going on. You've lived this out across incarnations in the false matrix, because your contracts, these suppression mechanisms, these suppression technologies, they were very much interconnected to individual contracts to suppress very specific individuals, what we call in the false matrix over the past few years, targeted individuals. It was literally in the tech of how the earth had been constructed and how your contracts in the false matrix had to play out. So this is so much deeper than groups. Targeting individuals, targeting all of that stuff happens to, and oftentimes that happens to people who have this tech and these overlays installed into their field so that they're targeted, even if people are doing it and these groups are not fully aware of why and how, the whys and the hows of how this works. the reasons why so many people were targeted by these groups, by individuals, especially when it comes to scapegoating dynamics, was very much to do with this original suppression tech, how it played out in the grids, the overlays that were within the grids, the implants and the structures that were within energy fields and contracts, so that at certain levels, certain overlays, tech, commands would detonate. Okay, so what I mean by that is you get too far in coming back to yourself in some way. Maybe you become too visible. You become too loud, louder than the false matrix wants you to be, more visible than the false matrix wants you to be. You are moving into thresholds that unmask your true power that they don't want you accessing. And so therefore, there were suppression codes, suppression fields, suppression tech that would come into place automatically. And every lifetime this would occur, and you wouldn't really realize it because it wasn't ascension. So you didn't have the conscious awareness to know this is happening because it's organized. So what it was designed to do was to make you constantly feel as if the problem was with you. And so you'd pull yourself down, which would also be an effect of the suppression technology. Okay, so all of this began very specifically to try to keep certain beings in their prescribed place. And this began through, like I said, the Atlantean timelines. Now, you could argue that originally in the Atlantean timelines, when this began, it was actually not necessarily supposed to be nefarious. It was supposed to be a way to bring more structure, control, and organization to the earth. But it went against a lot of the original wisdom and the laws of the earth, where we were here to experience who we are as source-coded beings materially, but we were also here to allow our souls to evolve through that experience. And our souls, our soul evolution journey is deeply personal. We're not all here to have the same soul lesson. We're not all here, even if we have similar soul lessons, we're not here to do it the same way. Our soul evolution is extremely individual and connected with who we are, what our souls have been through, our purpose, our blueprint, and our source code, right? So with all of that being said, pre-Atlantean times, Lemurian times, and before even the Lemurian times, every being that was allowed to enter onto the earth was coded to do so, okay? And their evolution was a personal, something that they had full personal authority over. And so everyone was moving at their own pace. Everyone had their own clock system that aligned with who they are, who they were, what they were seeking to, learn through their own soul contracts, etc., and what they were here to bring to the earth. Because we're all here to bring something to the earth simply by existing based upon our coding, okay? So some beings felt like everyone should be on a faster soul track, or a soul track that was more cohesive with the collective group narrative. And so they decided that it would be best to begin to control those who weren't up to speed. But what this actually began and what it became was a big shit show, because we are not here to guide other people. We are not here to be other people's masters. The only ones we're here to master are ourselves. And whenever there's an introduction of mastery that is external, meaning someone trying to master another being, it introduces the opportunity for distortion, dysfunction, and discord. And indeed, that's what began to happen. And so a lot of what drove this need for beings to be on a more collective evolutionary path was really ego, right? It was ego. And so ego got out of hand. And so a lot of those beings who put themselves in these positions of power started to want more, or started to argue amongst themselves. And this created a bigger issue, more schism, right? And so eventually what occurred was that this no longer became a situation where people were seeking to help one another in their soul's evolution. It became a pissing contest. Okay, and in that, a lot of the people who were the original, you could say the original, grid keepers, grid holders, the ones who actually had real authority on the earth, there was a lot of suppression techniques that started to come into place, because a lot of the Atlantean tech that started to come on board, beings felt like they could use the tech and override the original source code, okay, with their tech. But their tech was also rooted upon the original code keepers and the original technologies that were source coded. So at the same time as trying to override the beings with the source code, the original source codes, the access codes, the vault codes, they knew they still needed these beings in order for their tech to work. Their tech wouldn't work without the original templates that their tech could feed upon and emulate and mimic. Okay, so this is where we get into a lot of emulation, a lot of copying, a lot of mimicking, a lot of what we call destiny swapping. This is kind of where it began. And I'm telling you all of this because there's so much right now that is clearing out of not even ourselves specifically. It's going to have an effect on us. But this is the grid structures of the earth and the multiple false overlays and energetic configurations and structures that were designed to tune into our individual energy fields, to suppress us, to activate us wrongfully, to deactivate us. And none of us knew this. We were none the wiser, because when we came here, we were lied to and we were told that we are, finite beings, mortal beings, limited beings. These are the confines in which we can live, because these are our limitations as human beings. We're so weak as humans, right? And so when we bought that story, we created that story, we built that story, we looped that story across generations to the point where it became very, stuck. And so what we've been doing on a personal level is we've been clearing out our energy fields. All of the healing work we've been doing has been about clearing out our energy fields, our personal energy fields. And what's happening now is, because so much personal work has been done in the collective, and because so much of what the astrology is occurring right now, the solar weather, what it is that the earth is coded to do right now, which is to go through this process of total rebirth. Now what we're dealing with are the actual collective energies, the collective grids that were connected to our individual personal fields and were suppressing us. Okay, so I think whoever these messages are for, you're with me, right? So all of you, in accordance with who you are on a soul level, in terms of your own source code, there were suppression technologies, grids, overlays that were designed very specifically to target those aspects of your power. So I've often talked about how the false matrix is an inversion, right? So it's an inversion, which means that everything is kind of back to front when you're dealing with the false matrix. So in other words, in order to disempower you, they had to target the thing that makes you the most powerful and make you feel very weak in that area, through their systems, through their programs, through social dynamics, partner dynamics, friendship group dynamics, all of these false matrix, all of these structures within, because, all of these structures within the false matrix were designed to suppress and to get us to suppress other people too. We were all complicit, whether we were conscious of it or not. We were all complicit in this. Okay, so within the context of these suppression technologies that targeted your specific powers, like I said, it was designed that when you got to what should be certain milestones of your evolution, you were pulled back. And this is where the need to traumatize beings, to make them afraid of going past certain thresholds, that's where it kicked into place. And if you lost the fear and you moved past the threshold, then punishment controls would step into place. Okay, where you would be, again, it would depend upon your own blueprint, your own source code, your true codes of power, what it is you came here to do for the earth organically, for her Edenic templates, what you came here to do in terms of connecting with the true vault system of the earth. So wherever you could begin to reactivate those grids on the earth, the Edenic grids, what we're calling now the new earth grids, you could reactivate the true elemental harmonics of the earth. Okay, you could, where you could begin to shift the control of the ley lines back to the elemental beings and back to under source code. Anywhere you were able to do those things would be where you would be suppressed. And understand and overstand that you are a beautifully complex being on a collective level, in terms of how our collective energy field is designed to interface with the earth, but also on an individual level. So, and this is where I get into it with people in their TAROTSTROLOGY charts, because I just had a client a few days ago and I was speaking to her and I was saying, even if I have a TAROTSTROLOGY chart from someone who was born on the same day, same time, same location as another person, the way I read those energies, the way they channel and they come through will never be the same for both. Because, and the reason for that is because your energy field and what it's set up to do is not going to be the same as anyone else's. Okay, so an example of this is, like I just said, about the dragon lines of the earth, for example, and how calling those back into the proper source code, proper power. Many beings can do this, but they do it in accordance with their codex. Some, their voices are coded into the grids. Others, their feet are coded into the grids. Their hands are coded into the grids. Their eyes, because you're here to see and to scan and to clear on that level from what it is that you're able to pick up visually, or you're here to create, you're here to channel through your hands, or literally your feet as you walk on the earth activate and deactivate certain things, right? Or as you speak things into existence, it actually can code the grids. Everyone has their own function and how their different, the different aspects of their physical expression is here to connect with certain grids, certain technologies, and certain ways to keep the earth in harmony. And it comes through in your chart. It comes through, for me, when I read it, it comes through in your chart. And this is what I'm going to do today with the collective chart too. So let's get into this, because this is a very, very long and verbose introduction. Those of you who hang out with me or have been with me for the past few years, you know I do talk a lot. If that's a problem for you, you can bounce. bounce, bounce, bounce. I'm not the one for you, and that's fine. Find the person who is, because the more that we find the ones we are supposed to be with, that's our job in returning the earth to harmonic resonance also. We need to stop sticking around in places with people who we are not frequentially aligned with. It's a problem. It causes frequential static and issues that we're actually here. We're not really doing the work of ascension if we're not also taking responsibility for who we share our frequency with, okay? Or who we connect with frequentially. If we don't like them, let's keep it moving, okay? If you don't like me, that's okay. You don't have to. Keep it moving. Alrighty. Let's get into it. So I have the chart open. So yesterday's full moon in Leo occurred at 13 degrees. So we had 13, 13. This is the last full moon in this 13-degree sequence. It is the fourth and final full moon in this 13-degree sequence. So if you want to think about it this way, we had the full moon in Cancer, full moon in Gemini. So it was a full moon in Taurus, I believe, that began this 13-degree sequencing. So think about each one of those full moons as being a node, right? So full moon in Taurus, a node, full moon in Gemini, a node, full moon in Cancer, a node, full moon in Leo, a node. Full moon in Leo is closing it up. It's creating a square effect. 4 full moons, 4 points of axis, it's created a square. Not a square in terms of like astrology, but a square just in terms of the shape and the geometry. Now, why is this important? Because squares, geometrically and energetically speaking, are about the setting of a foundation. So these past 4 moons, including last night's full moon in Leo, have been setting a very clear energetic foundation through the number 13. So what does that mean? What is 13? 13, first and foremost, astrologically, is a degree of Aries. Okay? Now, this is important because the Aries energy, those of you who've been working with me one-to-one, you know, personal readings, etc., I've been talking to you guys about how this Aries energy has been speaking to me very, very powerfully since the new year. And at first I thought, oh, you know, it's Chiron. Chiron just went direct and it's at the master degree of 22. You know, maybe it's that chironic energy. And then I realized, oh, it's, you know, when Aries season comes around, it's going to be the year of the fire horse, which is very much, it feels like a merging of Aries and Sagittarius energy, right? So I thought maybe that, and I fully had forgotten that Neptune at the end of January was moving into Aries. Excuse me. So right now, Neptune is in Aries. It just moved there a few days ago. It's at the 0-degree point. And 0 degrees, of course, is a portal. It's the 0 point where all things go to begin and end. 0 is, you know, what you could call an alpha omega portal. Aries and Pisces together. Well, we'll get into that later if it's of importance. And I think it is, because Saturn and Neptune are kind of merging and forming an alpha omega portal that's going to become more magnified and pronounced through the eclipses coming forth, as well as when the astrological new year begins, as well as we have the Chinese new year beginning with the next new moon. The new moon in Aquarius begins the Chinese new year, the year of the fire horse. So I say that because there is a lot of very powerful Aries energy at play right now, even if it's not always very obvious. Okay, now why is this important? Because Aries energy returns you to your master code. It returns you to mastery and to your master codes. Okay, it's the beginning of the wheel. It's where you get your source code, your source information. It's why every single one of you, even if you have 0 Aries in your chart in terms of placements, everyone has prominent Aries energy because you have an ascendant. Your ascendant or your rising sign is the doorway through which you access and you enter your own chart. Okay? And that ascendant is your Aries energy. It's what crowns you. It's your I am energy. Okay, so why is this important? Because we've had this full moon in Taurus, full moon in Gemini, full moon in Cancer, full moon in Leo, 13-degree Aries squaring energy, this foundation that's being set, this return of master codes. But 13 is also not for nothing. It is the number that is of the death card in the tarot, right? The major arcana number 13 card is the death card. And the death card is the card of Scorpio. And it has to do, again, Scorpio and Aries, there is a connection because Aries is ruled by Mars, Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars. So they work in different ways, utilizing and expressing this Mars energy. So you're dealing with also very powerful death codes that have been coming into the earth. Death codes. Through the full moon in Taurus, full moon in Gemini, full moon in Cancer, full moon in Leo. Now, what are these death codes connected to? These are death codes that are connected to very specifically the grid systems of the earth. Okay, and where am I getting that also? Well, 13, when you break it down, is 4. And what is 4? 4 connects us to Cancer, the sign of Cancer in the astrologically speaking, and it connects us to the Emperor, which is more Aries energy, which has to do with foundations. 4, again, like I said, is a number of foundations. This is where we get the square from. The square is the first geometrical shape that begins to establish something, the 4 sides. So when you're dealing with geometry energetically, you want to establish something, you work with the even numbers. You want something to flow, you work with the odd numbers. Okay? Now, this is showing me something important. It's showing me that these full moons were not just about, they were doing 2 things. They were detonating death codes within the grid systems, death and rebirth codes, but very specifically death codes. And they were also in allowing certain things to die through the grid structures of the earth. They were bringing back certain things to life too. So a lot of the false matrix grids that were designed to suppress have been going through a huge shedding and death process through every one of these full moons. And as they've done that, they've been unearthing the original source codes, original master codes, original logos codes that belong to us on a personal level and that also belong to the earth. And why is this important? Because it is through the unearthing of these master codes that we can shift out of being tied to these contracts where we were being suppressed to be controlled and to be mastered, and we can rise back into self-mastery. We can resurrect the I am again on earth and be in complete authority over self, and we can live in our source code and our power again. Okay, so one second, let me see. Something else was coming through as I was saying that. Something else was coming through. It will come back. It will come back. Okay, so another message that I wanted to share about these death codes and these codes of mastery. These codes of mastery. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. The codes of mastery, self-mastery, they were suppressed in order to bring forth master-slave contract agreements. Now, whether we want to call it that or not, that's exactly what it was. The false matrix was an energy harvesting complex that was rooted on the enslavement of souls, and very specifically, the enslavement and the imprisonment and the suppression of the souls who are connected with the true technologies of the earth to keep the false matrix running. Now, The way that the tech on the earth is was originally formed, it's an extremely intelligent system. Much like you guys energetically, we are extremely intelligent systems energetically. So at a certain point, there were certain grids and systems and structures on the earth that were designed to power down if and when certain scenarios took place. Those could have been scenarios that had to do with the true stewards and guardians of those things coming offline or being suppressed. Then those things would go into a protective mode and shut down. So what do I mean by that? Say that you're a being who is connected to the earth vaults and the sky vaults, and you're here to pull in things, you're here to pull in the resources of the earth through the vaults in the sky. If you were taken captive, or your energy field became compromised in some way, the access to those vaults and those codes would go into suppression. Okay, so again, I'm being very simple about this because the way that this works, it's very complex and it works on an individual level, and there's all kinds of what would be the word? Nothing is like set in stone, black and white. There's different ways this works, but let's just assume for the sake of simplicity that it's this simple. That's how it would be. Your energy field as a person who is connected to the vaults, you open and close the vaults through your energy field signature, through your command, through your source code. The minute you fall out of source code alignment, the proper access to those vaults closes down as a protection mechanism. If you're a person who you had deep connection to how the dragon lines and how source code moved through the dragon grids, how the frequency of the earth was maintained through the flow of that energy of the grid system. If you became hijacked or compromised, or you came offline with your source code, then those grids become locked in some way. Are you getting what I'm saying here? How the false matrix was able to do this through suppressing the literal beings whose source code flowed through their energy field, flowed through their bodies. A lot of the time it flows through the physical body also, flowed through the bodies. If they could suppress, overwrite, control those beings, they could begin to mess around with the true templates of the earth. And yet there were certain protection mechanisms that were built in so that if things occurred with those beings, if things occurred collectively, like let's say the frequency of the earth plummets, certain things go offline. What is occurring now is a lot of those beings who have been suppressed and have this tech, it's coming back online for them. And also the frequency of the earth is rising. So the original technologies, the original flow of how these technologies could work, it's coming back online again. And the more these beings are rising into the truth of who they are and embodying their power, the faster the shedding process is occurring to clear out the dead false matrix overlays, and the faster the true activations of the original architectures of the earth are coming back online. Okay, and this is exactly what these 4 full moons have been amplifying. They've been amplifying through the number 13. Now, let it not be lost in us also, the number 13 is a number of divine creation, very specifically to do with the mother. Now, I keep on saying master code, but really what we should be saying is mother code, because master comes from the term mater, as does material, which goes back to the mother. Mater is matter, also physical matter. Mater, M-A-T-E-R, is the Latin word for mother. So all things come from the mother. All things that come into existence come from the mother aspect of source. The father aspect of source is here to provide the original code that allows a mother to create. But you could argue that's not the case. That's also been skewed. We won't get into that right now. But more importantly, the father aspect of source is here to take out and distribute the creations of the mother and to protect her in her creational mode so that she's free to create in ways that produce and amplify harmony. And why is that? Because being in harmony is key to proper creation. If you don't have harmoniousness within self when you're creating, then you're not creating according to your source code. And they knew this in the false matrix, which is why they wanted you in distress. They wanted you traumatized. They didn't want you in harmony with yourself. Every system program in the false matrix was designed to get you to betray and reject yourself. Because through the rejection and betrayal of self, that is you consenting to being mastered. I'm going to say that again because it's important. Through the betrayal and rejection of self, that is us energetically consenting to being mastered. So when we move against our own souls, our own source and soul code, we are then opening up master agreements where something or someone else can step into the place of mastering our energy, mastering our field. It's not something we think or we do consciously. We don't have to. We are energetically set up to do that, and the false matrix exploited that with further contracting and energy holds to keep us under continual control and submission to their false authority over us. Okay, so everything in the false matrix was designed to make you think you were inadequate, you couldn't trust yourself, you didn't know what you were doing, you always needed something outside of you to give you security. And in adhering to that myth and to that lie, you give away not only your authority, you give away your power, and you give away your resources, and you give access to your energy field. Okay, so collectively, we were programmed to do this. Socially, we were programmed to enforce this. Like I said in, I think it was the last video, the new moon in Capricorn, most of the social dynamics within the false matrix were designed for energy policing. Not for helping people to elevate together into their power, but to police their energy. Okay. Let's get into this. So the sun was in Aquarius at 13 degrees and 3 minutes. Now, another very interesting thing about yesterday's full moon in Leo is that it's closing out, like I said, this 4 full moon cycle, but it's also closing out an 18-month cycle that occurred with the new moon in Leo back in 2024, that occurred at 12 degrees of Leo, the new moon, 12 degrees of Leo and 33 minutes. 12:33, okay, 333. Again, it's telling you it was a new moon that was bringing in master codes, but it was also a new moon that was severely fucked with. It was fucked with because that number 12 is a number where something just before it comes into the fullness of creation is where it can be flipped. 12 is a number of inversion. It's a Piscean number. Just when you get to this is why the 12th house, it's the house of karmic decisions. Because just as you get to the end of the wheel, if you're not so loyal to your own soul, that's where things can be flipped. Now, what occurred through that new moon in Leo was not only that new moon in Leo, let's just make this quick. The new moon in Leo in 2024, they put the gas, they stepped on the gas to magnify and amplify the suppression technologies and contracts that were part of our original false matrix welcome package. I'm being facetious, but we all have these original contracts. We all have these original stories and original technologies through which we became binded to the false matrix. And through the new moon in Leo in 2024, which occurred a few days before the 8/8 portal, as well as right before Mercury going retrograde, there was a lot of fuck shit that was going on, energetically speaking, to push us back into those contracts. Now, on the one hand, you can say, yes, it was nefariousness at work. Abso-fucking-lutely. But more importantly, what you need to understand and overstand is that these suppression technologies, like I said before, they were rooted into our energy systems and collectively into different fields and grids within the earth, so that when we got to certain junctures on our path, something would be detonated and amplified. And it feels like through that new moon in Leo in 2024, those suppression technologies, they went haywire. They went haywire not necessarily just because there was like nefariousness at play. They went haywire because the system was falling apart. Have you ever noticed that when something is about to die, sometimes it has like this last like final wind where it like all of a sudden it comes back to life and it gives you the hope that it's back, right? That's kind of what has been occurring through these systems, through the tech on the earth, the tech that's within many of us. It was like, okay, it's falling apart. The system is dying. There are new timelines here. The golden age timelines are rising. And now the tech is going to go completely fucking crazy because it's dying. Because it's dying. Okay, so think back to the new moon in Leo. Like I said, it occurred in 2024 at the beginning of August. Think back to what may have been happening at that time for you. Think back over the past 18 months of what it is that you've been dealing with very specifically when it comes to how your power is been suppressed. Think about the players. Think about it all. Because this full moon in Leo, for as long as we're allowing it to, is bringing a conclusion. And I say as long as we're allowing it to, because something very interesting is happening through this energy too. A lot of those things that were designed to suppress you will be coming back around or did come back around. And it's up to you to recognize, is this thing, is this person, is this situation a part of my true golden age timelines, or is this the false matrix dying off? And I don't say this to ever put anyone in fear, because that's not conducive to you listening to your own soul. Because the truth of the matter is that whether we want to, I want to say this in a way where it's so clearly comprehended and there's no room for bypass, okay? If you are a being who is dedicated on a soul level to your journey here, Even, and I've said this before and I'm going to keep on saying it, even when you falter because you fall out of agreement with trusting yourself, or your own fear overrides your discernment, at your core, if at the core of you, your desire and your soul's truth is that you are seeking to rise into your source code, even if you go around on another, journey through a karmic loop, you will get out. Okay? You will get out. And I will say this also, on every journey through a loop, you also will get something, right? You always will get something also. It's not worth it a lot of the time if you know better, because you end up losing more than you get if you know better. But this is where, again, the soul, the journey of evolution is so personal. It's because what will work for someone, you can't watch somebody else do something and because they get away with it or yada yada, think that that's okay and it will be okay for you. No, because maybe they're getting away with it because they didn't know better. It's their first time around, their second or third time around. They're still learning something. Okay, so I want to insert that because it's important that we all know that the whole purpose of this ascension is to get us out of the false matrix and the loop, to those of us who are truly dedicated and not bypassing and pretending. Okay. Speaking of bypassing and pretending, a lot of the suppression technologies, as they're falling out of, falling away and being disempowered, a lot of the ways that people have been bypassing through ascension or trying to bypass, those things are not going to work anymore. We're at a higher level. We're at a higher level. So the things that once upon a time people would be able to get away with on the ascension path, they won't be able to anymore because we're rising into new earth standards. Okay? Okay, Sun in Aquarius at 13 degrees. Let's break this down in terms of the astrology, the tarot astrology. So that would be the Sun card, right? Aquarius is the star. So we have the Sun and the star. To some extent, you also have the Fool, right? The 13-degree mark, we've already broken it down. Degree of Aries, Cancer associations, death card associations. The 13-degree mark in terms of the minor arcana connection, the 13 degrees of Aquarius, is the Six of Swords. It's the Six of Swords. So what is this showing us? Because it's the Sun and the star and the Six of Swords, what we're dealing with now is clear illumination of a path. Now, the Sun tends to deal with your solar codes, who and what you're solar coded to be on the earth, which is always going to be in connection with your source codes. Your source codes are your original command codes. Your solar codes have to do with what it is you have access to on the earth. The earth is part of a solar system, and the main sun on the earth brings forth the coding that connects to us and our solar fields to determine what it is, who we are here, what it is we have access to, etc. Which is why through that very powerful Sirius gateway that reaches its peak in Leo season in what we call the 8-8 portal, that's where solar codes are coming through from Sirius, because Sirius sets the solar codes on the planet. Sirius is the star system through which law comes forth, your lawful coding, your lawful scrolls, your lawful upgrades come through that portal every year, come through the sun, come through the solar codes of the earth. You receive those solar codes. You are updated in those solar codes for as long as you are able to receive them, meaning that you are matching the frequency of your own solar codes. And this is why the frequency wars pick up at the end of Leo season, to shake you out of frequential alignment with your own solar codes, so that not only they can steal them, because a lot of them they can't steal, but the ones that they can steal and redirect, they do, but also just so you don't have access. Because if you don't have access to your true solar codes, you can't activate the nodes and the pods on the earth that you're here to activate through your presence, through your source encoded existence. In other words, our energy fields, when they are up to solar code, when they are properly solar coded, they're up to proper solar code, our energy fields become instruments of law, instruments of what keeps things on the earth running in harmonic resonance in accordance with source truth. So if we are not rising into the proper frequential match to hold our own solar codes, then we are living in distortion. We are not anchored in source truth, and we are therefore still a match for the false matrix. We're not a match for our source encoded abilities, where we're here to actually bring and enforce the law simply through being in proper alignment. Okay, so I say that again because the new moon in Leo in 2024, that was a huge solar code hijacking through that 12-12 inversion energy. And this full moon in Leo at 13-13, it's putting an end. There's a death to what was done there. Because for one thing, some of it was unlawful, absolutely. All of it is unlawful when you think about it. But at the same time, it is how we are purging the very things that had us locked. We can't just snap our fingers and things shift, because we live on the material plane. So we still have to abide by how things work materially. Now, it doesn't have to take long. It's all dependent upon how we're using and remembering how to use our own consciousness. But we're remembering, we're relearning, we're making mistakes because we're still not seeing clearly, or we haven't up until this point. And this is where there's a huge shift through this full moon. Because I said the sun, solar coded alignment, the star, this is where we come into alignment with the cosmos. Alignment, very specifically, the star is also very much connected to Sirius energy, right? So we're coming into alignment with the law, with cosmological law, who you are. Leo has to do with your source code. It has to do with your source code in terms of, I don't want to get too into this right now, but it has to do, all of the fire signs connect you with your source code and how you embody it in different ways. Aries is with how you think. Leo is with how you feel. Sagittarius is with how you walk, right? So through this, now I've lost my train of thought. Give me a second. Fuck. It will come back. It will come back. Let's continue where we left off. The star, it will come up back. Cosmological coding, solar coding, coming back into being able to see the illumination, the clear path back between the sun and the star. Oh, fuck. Okay, anyway. Six of Swords. Six of Swords is where you begin to move away from things that seek to master you, but oftentimes things that seek to master you covertly while pretending that that's not what it's doing. So the Six of Swords comes after the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is where something or someone or a group constantly trying to pull you down, but trying to pull you down through ways that are invisible mental tricks and fuckery. That's the Five of Swords. So when we get to the Six of Swords, this is the moving away. This is the moving away and moving towards divine contracts, because it connects us to the Lovers. It's moving towards Edenic code. Okay? Oh, this is what I wanted to say originally. Leo is very much to do with self, right? Aquarius is how you plug that self into the collective story in order to bring collective enlightenment, collective movement, collective flow. Leo almost acts like a plug, and Aquarius acts like a circuit, like a network. Okay, so a lot of where you've been short-circuited, let's put it this way, this full moon is here to help you see and help you clear. And either way, on a collective level, a lot of those things that have been designed to target certain individuals since the previous golden age, which was the age of Leo. So that's another thing that I haven't brought up yet, which is of importance. When we're entering into this Aquarius season and the full moon in Leo, we are dealing with very powerful golden age activations. We're dealing with the rising of the new golden age and the codes that are coming forth for that. And we're dealing with the return of the golden age codes from the previous golden age that need to come back online to set the foundation for the new one, as well as the codes that intercepted the previous golden age that need to leave. Every time we enter into Aquarius and Leo, whether Aquarius season, Leo season, we are dealing with this dynamic right now. And it's very, very amplified because we are getting ready. The nodes, by the time we get to Leo season, I want to say, will have entered into Aquarius and Leo. The North node will be in Aquarius, the South node will be in Leo. So either way, this is the last Aquarius season before the next Aquarius season where the North node will be in Aquarius. Okay, so very, very powerful golden age activations and very powerful golden age, age of Leo reactivations, as well as clearing of what intercepted and brought that golden age to an end. And right now, what is it working on? You're dealing with that 13-degree mark of Leo, where you've been suppressed, where you've been made, oftentimes, this was something that many of you dealt with, you were made either invisible to the system or a threat to the system, or both. So at any given point, the different plots and storylines and timelines that were manifesting for you through the false matrix were where you were constantly dealing with being invisible and being a threat, being invisible and being a threat. You become too visible, you become a threat. Why is this important? Because the card of 13 degrees Leo, it is the Six of Wands. What is the Six of Wands energy? Well, the Six of Wands is connected again to the 8-8 portal. The 8-8 portal card is the Six of Wands. Oftentimes the 8-8 portal occurs anywhere between 13 to like 17 or 18 degrees Leo, depending on the year. Okay? 13 might be a stretch, maybe anywhere from 14 to 18 degrees, depending on the year. Okay? But in other words, the Six of Wands, it rules over the 10 to 19 degree mark of Leo. Let's put it that way. So anywhere the 8-8 portal occurs, any degree, it's the Six of Wands. Okay? So the Six of Wands, it is about the receiving of your solar codes, the receiving of how the system, you become visible in the source code system. Now, if the solar codes that are coming through Sirius are about making you visible in the source encoded system, and the false matrix is an inversion, then what the fuck is it doing for you in the inversion? It's shutting you down, it's suppressing you, it's making you invisible in certain ways. And visible only in the ways that it wants to make you visible for the purpose of traumatizing you a lot of the time. That's how it was set up through the false matrix, but that's not how it was set up through source. Why do you need to be visible to the source system? So your system can be read, so it can be registered, so the grids can activate and everything can come into harmony in accordance with the laws that you carry in your source encoded embodiment. That's what receiving those solar codes are actually about. It's not about manifestation, living your best life. All of that was a distraction. And in all frankness, it was the way that they were able to harvest and redirect our solar codes and give them to beings that a lot of the time weren't supposed to be here, and to make them feel as if they were magical as fuck. We're master manifestors. No, bitches, you're master thieves. And you've been coded by the false matrix to steal from others, to constantly put them in a certain situation where they feel as if they're beneath, in order to keep the inversion going. That's why in the past few years, there's such an influx in information around manifestation. It's not about empowerment. It was about literally, the false matrix knew it was dying, and it was like, well, how do we have one last heist? Let's start unloading and telling people how they actually work, because the false matrix system is still coded. The source encoded system of the earth has not fully come online. So if we teach these people how they're able to do this and pull these things in through their mind, then what they're going to be doing is feeding the false matrix grid that siphons those codes from others. I hope you're with me. That's what it's been about. It's been about creating mass energetic confusion. And like I said, one last heist energy where they could continue to steal and siphon terribly from those who already were under suppression, in order to add another barrier to them rising and activating, to therefore further delay the ascension process. That's what it's been about. So if you've been feeling in this full moon very weighted with a fog, or something that was holding you down, or even feeling very lethargic, that's a lot of that stuff coming up for you to experience what's actually been in your system. You might be feeling it more like powerfully now, but that literally has been living in your system, constantly keeping you suppressed. And when you start to feel it physically, that shows you it's manifesting in the material planes for you either to succumb to the story that you're being overcome by it, or for it to get the fuck on out. Time for it to go. Time for it to go. It's time for those who are source encoded and are here to bring the earth back online and into harmony again. It's time for them to become visible. And when I say visible, I'm not talking about being on a camera or being in front of the collective. Although for some of you, that's exactly what the fuck you're supposed to be doing and you haven't been able to do. Or even if you've been able to do it to a certain extent, like me, you're constantly being pushed against. It becomes a struggle just to fucking show up and do what you're literally fucking encoded to do. Everything becomes a battle. That's not how it's supposed to be. That's not how it's supposed to be. Your talents, your gifts, your resources are supposed to flow to you with ease, because the systems of the earth pick up your visibility, pick you up with ease, and it sees who you are, and the energy, the energetic templates that sustain the earth, they act in accordance. People are supposed to see who you are and treat you in accordance with your source code, not the false matrix scripts and overlays designed to get you to be rejected. They're also, those suppression technologies are not only designed to suppress your power, they were designed to get other beings who are supposed to be supporting you or in alignment with you to reject them and to push them out your field. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to recognize those that you are truly on you're truly a frequential match with. You know why? Because when you come together, you guys form certain nodes on the earth. That when you come together, because you're really a frequential match, you're reinstating the laws of the earth. You're reinstating the social harmonic energies on the earth. Which is why all of this suppression tech was designed to suppress you and to keep you away from those that you're supposed to be with. And to attract oftentimes those who have the desire to keep you invisible. Even if it's unconscious. That's clearing. As we allow it to. It's clearing. Whew. Okay, let's go through this quickly. We're already an hour and some change through. We've got Mercury at 21 degrees. Mercury is speaking to us of an end. An end. 21 is the World card. An end. Right? Mercury is a magician. Aquarius is the star and the fool. The 21 degree mark of Aquarius is the 7 of Swords. Mercury is showing us a way out. But it's a way out that comes by way of being very strategic in our thinking. And what I mean when I say strategic is that the way out of the false matrix is not to think like the false matrix. This is why the false matrix likes to police the way you think and the way you express, especially through group dynamics. But the way back to your truth and to your source code is going to be through recovering your own mental networks that connect you with your source encoded truth, with your I am, and bringing down the false networks that have networked you to stories, programs, beliefs that were never designed to benefit you, but were designed to keep you in those master-slave contracts where something else was always controlling you, even when you thought you were thinking for yourself. So the way out of the false matrix is always going to be through reprogramming your own mind and your own neural paths and networks, and being true to that. It does feel like through this Mercury, it's a way, Mercury in Aquarius at 21 degrees through this full moon, there are pathways that are being lit up. Especially, I want to say, on a biological level, the networks within your mental body, which will also be comprised of your neural pathways and neural networks. There's an opportunity, therefore, to upgrade your mental processes. But in order to do that, you have to push past the ways you think and the ways your mind has been programmed into thinking things that you have been taught is logic, when really it's a cage. '21 is also a degree of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the sign. It's connected to the 144 frequency, first and foremost. Sagittarius is the sign on the zodiac wheel that reconnects us to our literal master codes. Sagittarius is the sign through which we meet the galactic center. Sagittarius is a sign that shows us how to step away from the crowd and begin to walk in accordance with our own codex and philosophy by faith in self, as opposed to adhering to the groupthink and the social codes that keep us walking with others, but not in harmony with self. Venus in Aquarius at 19 degrees. This is the Empress, the star, again, the Fool to a lesser extent, and 19 degrees is the Six of Swords. It feels very much like what is being birthed through this full moon is a solar alignment that allows for us to get free. 19 is the degree of solar alignment. The number 19 card in the major arcana is the sun. 19 is where we come back up to solar code. 19 is also a degree of Libra. This is where we come into harmonic resonance within ourselves. Libra and Leo are very connected with not only coming back up to solar code, but also beginning to embody it through how we choose to think and feel. There's something about this Venus in Aquarius at 19 degrees where our ability to live on the earth in full solar coded embodiment is being actualized, is being materialized. Venus, like I said, it's the Empress. It's giving birth on the earth, not in the ethers, but on the earth. So this is coming into being. Coming into being. There's also a resurrection. There's a resurrection. I'm drawn to the minutes. So Venus is in Aquarius at 19 degrees and 20 minutes. 20 is the judgment. There's a resurrection, Scorpio energy also, astrologically speaking. There's a resurrection. What is the resurrection of? The resurrection, I believe, are of the codes that are returning to you from the Earth's grids. So there were a lot of overlays that were connected to your energy field that perpetuated these suppression technologies. As those overlays die, they give way to the true grids that were under them. And like I said before, a lot of these grids were coded to you, but you had to come back into a certain level of alignment to be tapped into them again. And in some cases, for some of you, to bring those very grids back to life. And the earth had to be in a certain frequency again for those grids to come back online too. It feels like there's a resurrection of codes that are coming through. The original codes that lived in those true grids of the earth, as those grids are resurrecting, they are bringing back the codes that were locked in that belong to you too. These are codes that connect you, reconnect you to your mastery as you have walked it on the earth in other timelines before the false matrix. Okay, Mars in Aquarius at 7 degrees. Mars is the tower. 7 degrees of Aquarius. Oh, well, let's go into the major arcana. Mars is the tower. Again, we have the star. We have the Fool as an what's the word? Undercurrent of energy, I guess. And then the 7 degree mark of Aquarius is the 5 of Swords. Something else I want to bring up here, because we're dealing with a lot of Aquarian energy. We've got the Sun in Aquarius, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Pluto in Aquarius. And we are in the age of Aquarius, moving deeper into it. The North Node is about to go into Aquarius in a few months. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Uranus is getting ready to station to go direct this week. I want to say on either February the 4th or the 5th, Uranus is stationing to go direct after being retrograde for the past 6 months or so. So a lot of what's happening through this full moon in Leo and the upcoming new moon in Aquarius, which is actually a full solar eclipse, if I'm correct. And Uranus going direct is going to have an effect of flipping a lot of things very quickly. Uranus is a wild card. Uranus is the fool. It's the 0 point. But Uranus is, in my opinion, the planet where time comes to be flipped, where time comes to be bent. Uranus is a time bender. Uranus is the planet through which a lot of the ways we were programmed out of our power and into imprisonment, very specifically through how they used time and time structures in the false matrix. Uranus is coming to flip a lot of that on its head. So you should have your own relationship with time based upon who you are and your own evolutionary track. You should not be ruled by a collective clock. These collective clocks that they put us under were connected to the suppression technologies that were designed to keep us under energetic control. Okay? Uranus is breaking those clocks. Who's in charge of time? Saturn. Saturn is not here to bind you to time constructs that aren't in alignment with your truth, but Saturn was used to do that in the false matrix. So a lot of that Saturnian time fuckery we've been dealing with is closing out. Again, it's as we allow for it, because again, what is your consciousness believing is possible? Right? The script you allow your own consciousness to align with is what will continue to play out. Now, in terms of time and time prisons, the false matrix, you were designed to be imprisoned in time structures that were contrary to your source code, because when that occurs, it brings into your reality death, disease, and decay, wrongful death, disease, and decay timelines. It also introduces loops where you stall. And when you stall and you get stuck in a loop, that also opens a gate and a door to wrongful death, decay, and disease timelines. You are not supposed to live here and be sick. Sickness is very energetic. It's about your gateway system and what is allowed to come in and stay and build in your energy system. Even your own biology shows you this. When you get sick because you get infiltrated by a virus, a bacteria, or even a parasite that your system recognizes, and this is important because your system must recognize that it's a threat, what does your body instantly do? It gives you a fever, oftentimes. Why does it causes you to throw up, or you get diarrhea. Why? Because your body is ejecting that thing, because it's a foreign agent that is designed to fuck with your system. The temperature of fever is designed to bring your temperature up to make it an inhospitable environment for that bacteria or virus. The problem becomes, and this is where, the whole immunity story and vaccinations becomes an issue. It becomes an issue when you build immunity to these things existing in your system. And I'm going to leave it right there. I'll let you guys do the mental gymnastics around that, because you should. You're a gateway system, and you're not supposed to let things into your system that invade and override your control center. The whole point of viruses, bacteria, and the whole illness complex of the false matrix was to open your gates to things coming into your system and for you to agree to the override biologically. But that's more Sagittarius. I mean, it's Aquarian energy too, but it's more Sagittarian energy. So what we're doing right now, you have to see yourself as existing on all planes. Your physical body is your interface with the material planes, but you exist on all other planes too. And before anything comes into fruition in the material, it first is born and birthed in those other planes. And the only way it can come through and have an effect on your material reality is through the filtration of your own thoughts and feelings, through your mental and emotional field. So Mars in Aquarius at 7 degrees. Mars is blowing things up, as Mars does. It's opening up your consciousness to begin to see how you've become an open network. You've become an open network that anyone can access. It's showing you all the ways that occurred. If you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and most importantly, the heart to understand, overstand what is being shown. You're not supposed to, you see, this is where they fucked you over in the false matrix. You're supposed to be an open source network, meaning that your network is open to your source code and that alone. But you're not supposed to be a network that's open for public consumption. And that's what they did to us in the false matrix. And Aquarius being the sign that deals with how you network energetically, which is why it's technology, World Wide Web, which was again designed to make our energy bodies more accessible. They even tell you that the WWW is an Aquarian letter. W is 23, 23rd letter of the alphabet. What is the number? What are the numbers of Aquarius? 11, 23. Everything is coded. Everything. When I tell you everything, I mean everything is coded. And everything works almost like a Lego system, or is supposed to, in source code. And when it works beautifully. And all it requires of us is to be who we are and to follow our joy. That's all it requires. Everything else falls into place. The desire to give, the desire to produce and to create, all of those things fall into rightful alignment. The grids come into harmonic resonance because we're living lawfully. To live lawfully is to live by your source code. And to live by your source code is to restore law and harmony on the earth. Everything is coded. I hope that helps you to decode yourself. I have a lot of decrees that are here to help also. You can check me out on Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi.com/SolarAR'S. All through Sagittarius season, I was helping you guys, if you were paying attention, I was helping you guys come back into alignment with your true biology through my decrees. The true instatement of your light body. Harmonics, which are only for you. Your harmonics, your light body harmonics will not look like anyone else's. So nobody else can bring you back online but you. My decrees are tools and resources to help you get back to your own information on how to do that by first overriding the collective story that you are networked into. 7 is also a Saturnian number. Still looking at Mars in Aquarius at 7 degrees. 7 is connected to the Chariot, which tells you it's about light body. Mars is fighting for us to take back authority over our own light bodies and how we properly wield the power of our consciousness to drive them. 7 is a degree of Libra, astrologically speaking, but in terms of planetary alignment, it is connected to Saturn, and it's connected very specifically to Saturn in terms of how divine law manifests numerically on the earth. Okay, so we have Neptune in Aries. Neptune has slid its way into the 0-degree mark of Aries. Saturn is closing out its time in Pisces for good and will be entering Aries also. What is important about this Piscean Aries energy, and those of you who've rolled with me for the past few years what I'm saying will be familiar to you. When you get to Pisces, the close of Pisces and the beginning of Aries, you're coming to an alpha omega portal of divine mother creation. You're re-entering the womb of creation. There are different points within astrology where there are very specific womb convergence points. Womb convergence points that help you to bring things forward, but this alpha omega portal womb convergence point is where you come to be, to exist almost, which is why in your astrological chart, it is through your ascendant, through your Aries energy, that you come into being, you come into existence. So when you get to the closing degrees of Pisces, this is when things are dying. And when you get to Aries, this is where things are coming to life again. But it's a very strong portal of death and existence, because it's like the master source codes of existence exist within this field. Okay, so we have Saturn closing out. It's at 28 degrees, which is a degree of Cancer, which again is telling you Cancer is the sign that connects us to the grids of the earth. It also connects us to the frequency, the collective frequency of the planet, and what that means based upon our collective emotional experience, which is exactly why the false matrix had to keep us traumatized and in fear states, to lower the collective emotional resonance, and why it targeted those who were extremely powerful emotional beings, because emotional energy is how things are birthed. It targeted those beings who have very powerful birthing creative energy to keep them in despair, to magnify the despair on the planet. Okay, so Saturn and Neptune together, moving through the end of Pisces, beginning of Aries. This is something new is coming into existence. And I would venture to say, with Saturn closing out and moving into Aries, time, as it's supposed to be, is being reborn on the planet. Neptune moving through Aries, time is being reborn in accordance with source code. Aries holds a lot of the codes of mastery. When we come back to Aries energy, we are remembering who we are on a master code level. That's the original code that we were written and spoken into. We have an original code that brought us into existence. And then we have codes that have built upon that. Codes that have been replicated, sometimes wrongfully. But we have an original master code. When we get to Aries, we get the opportunity to begin to remember that. That's how Aries works on our consciousness. All the planets and zodiac signs, they are here to help your consciousness to grow and evolve in alignment with your own evolutionary path and journey on a personal level and the collective consciousness resonance. Aries helps to reconnect us to our original source code, our master codes. Also our codes of mastery, the codes that allow us to live in our master code, our mater code, our mother code. Neptune is a planet that begins to expand us into touching things with our hearts that we've been told aren't real. You see, the false matrix could program your mind into thinking certain things, but it couldn't really fuck with your heart. When you felt something, you couldn't deny it. You could suppress it, repress it, but you couldn't really fully, outrightly deny it. And it's the heart that reconnects you with your infinite truth, because you feel something isn't right. You felt something wasn't right. That's what opened the door to allow your mind to go to places. It was through your heart. Neptune is what begins to connect our heart field with those things that are part of our infinite truth that we've been told aren't real. And when our heart field can reconnect with those things, we can begin to birth them again. Because your heart field is very connected to your emotional body, which is where you birth all things. If your heart can expand to believe and to touch something vast, it can actually be brought out of vastness and into the material planes. Neptune, moving through Aries for the next 12 or 13 years, however long it is going to help us to reconnect with that. As Saturn moves through Aries also, and helps us to reinstate our proper relationship with time. Time isn't meant to control you. Time isn't meant to be to get you stuck doing things that are not a part of your soul code. Time is not supposed to be your prison and your master. Time is in service to you. You are here to master the material, and time is here to be an ally as you do that. That's what these shifts are bringing. Okay? So we have in the nodes, we've got the nodes are both at 10 degrees. You know, North Node in Pisces at 10 degrees, South Node in Virgo at 10 degrees, and they're both at 28 minutes, or they were yesterday. 28 again breaks down to 10, 10, 10. We've got the year 10, 10, 1, 0, 0, 1, creational code. Creational code. We're crossing a threshold. We're crossing a threshold. We're crossing a threshold that makes it possible to get back the original timelines, original blueprints, original master codes. And we're also crossing into a threshold where it's possible to completely disconnect from that which was suppressing us into not being able to hold our true master codes and timelines and blueprints. Where am I getting this also? Well, the 10-degree mark of Pisces is right at that doorway between the 8 of Cups and the 9 of Cups. So in other words, we're about to enter into the 8 of Cups energy as the nodes close out their time, and the 8 of Pentacles. The 8 of Cups is where you begin to walk away from everything that's not of emotional resonance and a frequential match. It's where you begin to close out not only your karmic stories, but you begin to close out your energy field from networking and connecting with those things designed to pull you out of source code, to pull you back and away from your true master codes and your master coded living. The 8 of Pentacles, which is Virgo energy, 0 to 9, 0 to 10 degrees Virgo. The 8 of Pentacles is where you begin to connect with your true blueprint. Your true cosmological legacy is accessed through Virgo. It's accessed through Virgo. The Eight of Pentacles in the false matrix is often depicted as being a card where you're supposed to sit down and get to work. But that's actually not true Virgo energy. Virgo is all about getting to work to align yourself properly with your soul and with what you're here to do on the earth based upon who you are on a soul level. The Eight of Pentacles is oftentimes somebody sitting down looking through text, scripts. Those are your blueprints, your soul prints. Comes right off of Leo season. The Eight of Pentacles is the end of August, right after Regulus, right after you've been regulated in your solar code upgrades. Or you begin the regulatory process, I should say. Okay, I think that's it. For those of you who wanted a personal full rebirth tarot astrology session with me, as I've said before, I am discontinuing those in April. I have a few slots left. Please be serious if you're coming to me. The information for that, it's on my website, solara.info. You can find out pricing and everything there. When you come to me for tarot astrology, please be ready to commit to it. I don't want back and forth with people at this point on my journey. There's no need for it. So if you're interested, go ahead and email me. That's the only way you can book is through, for this particular service, I have to approve it personally. Okay. So if you are interested in getting your entire chart read in the same way, channeled in the same way I've done this for you on the map of your soul, then please email me, Solara. Solara speaks at proton.me. I can think for a moment. I'm still in channeling mode. If I got my own email address wrong, it's okay. It's in the description box and it will be pinned in the comment section below. I will be doing eclipse alignment readings over the next few weeks. I will post that on the community board. I also have a bespoke decree service. So if you need a specific decree for something you're going through and you would like me to write it for you, to draft it for you, or to co-create it because you tell me what's going on, that's an option. I will put the information for that in the description box and pin it below. Also, for those of you who are returning clients and want to just check in, I do still have tea time sessions. They're quick 30-minute check-ins with me. Soul recovery sessions are still in session, 60 or 90 minutes. You can book those directly through my Ko-Fi. I will put the information for that in the description box below. You can find out more information on my Ko-Fi, also on my website, solara.info. What else? I have been doing like some energy reports on the community board over the past couple of weeks as I get ready to bring back my writing full time. So please, stay tuned. I will, of course, keep you up to date as to where you can find me in terms of connecting with my writing more regularly. Alrighty, I think that is it. Yes. I think that's it. Thank you for hanging out with me all of this time. I hope that this reading, channeling was insightful and activating. And I will see you guys for the new moon in Aquarius. Be well.